The beauty behind the placebo is that it's based on belief. And most people's beliefs are created from past experiences. So you have an experience or series of experiences in your life that brand you neurologically and emotionally condition you. And we tend to think and feel within the biology of our past experiences. 81% of the people that are given a placebo respond as well to the placebo as they would to an antidepressant. So what's the significance of that? It means they're making their own pharmacy of antidepressants, and their body and nervous system is the greatest pharmacist in the world. So how is it that you can give someone a sugar pill, and a certain percentage of those people will accept, believe, and surrender to the thought that they're getting the actual substance or treatment, and they begin to program their autonomic nervous system to make their own pharmacy of chemicals that matches the exact same chemical they think they're taking. The sugar pill, the inert substance, is not doing the healing, it's the thought that's doing the healing. But that pill, based on conditioning, is a symbol that represents possibility in someone's future. We can call that an intent. A certain percentage of those people will begin to become inspired, enthusiastic. They'll begin to become hopeful. They'll begin to give thanks that it could possibly work. And all they're doing is combining a clear intention with an elevated emotion. And in that moment, they're moving from the biology of their past into the biology of their future. So then, the question is, do you need the sugar pill to move into a new state of being? But instead of selecting a known in your life to help you heal, can you select an unknown, a new potential in the quantum field, without anything outside of you, and begin to revisit that unknown over and over again until you make it known in your biology? Is it possible that you'll begin to produce the same effects? And the answer is absolutely yes. So if how you think and how you feel creates a state of being, if you combine a thought and a feeling, a thought and a feeling, a thought and a feeling, that's called an attitude. You have a series of good thoughts that are connected to a series of good feelings, you have a good attitude. You have a series of negative thoughts that are connected to some bad feelings, you have a bad attitude. So attitudes are kind of shortened states of being. Good attitude in the morning, bad attitude in the afternoon. If you take attitudes, 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 and you string them together, you start creating a belief. So a belief then is just a thought you keep thinking over and over again until you hardwire it in your brain. And the very boundaries of our beliefs are our feelings. And when our beliefs get challenged, it typically doesn't feel right. So then if how you think and how you feel creates a state of being, and the repetition of thinking and feeling over time conditions the body to subconsciously become the mind, then all beliefs are subconscious states of being. People don't even know they have beliefs about medicine or about God or about relationships or about love or about gender because they've been programmed subconsciously. If you take beliefs and you string beliefs together, a belief, you form what's called perceptions. And perceptions have everything to do with the choices we make, the things we create in our life, the relationships we have, and even the behaviors that we demonstrate. If you're programmed into believing that you need something outside of you to heal, then that becomes your belief. And of course, you are going to need something to help you to heal. If you believe that you need a flu shot so that you don't get the flu, well, the fact that you're believing that you need the flu shot, whether you get the flu shot or not, you're more than likely going to get sick anyway. So when I wrote The Placebo, I was so fascinated with the concept because I began to realize how programmed we really are unconsciously. When you start studying the placebo, you begin to realize that there's so many studies to prove over and over again that it is in fact our innate ability to heal. If you take a group of people that have asthma and you have a drug that induces asthma and you have a drug that takes it away, and you give the person the drug that induces asthma and you tell them that you're giving them the drug that takes the asthma away, more than half of those people will not have a response to the bronchial constrictor. In other words, the thought was more powerful than the chemical. So then, if people begin to unravel this concept, and they begin to realize that they have the innate capacity to heal, and that they can work by changing and regulating their internal states, they're going to begin to produce their own pharmacy of chemicals for pain, for depression, for antibodies or inflammation. We took 120 people, and we wanted to measure their circulating cortisol levels and a chemical called immunoglobulin A, or IgA. So when you're stressed and you're out of balance, your cortisol levels go up. And cortisol levels are the highest at around 8 in the morning. So we selected a specific time in the afternoon to measure 120 people's cortisol levels when they came to our advanced workshop. We got the measurements, and we measured their IgA levels as well. We put them through 4.5 days of training, and at the end of 4.5 days, we measured to see if there were any epigenetic changes or chemical changes that took place by their internal work. We found that the majority of people's cortisol levels diminished, which means they were no longer in survival, they were no longer stressed. But the relevant thing that happened was that their IgA levels went from about 51.5 to 83, right to the ceiling of what's considered high, and some people were up in the hundreds. Now, IgA is the primary defense against bacteria and viruses. It's greater than any flu shot. And when you begin to create an elevated emotion like gratitude or appreciation or care or kindness or inspiration, you begin to activate the immune system, and the immune system begins to create order where there is once disorder. It begins to release all kinds of different chemicals that begin to regenerate and restore the body. It turns out that those chemicals stay active for the remainder of the day with just 10 minutes of just an elevated emotion. So we started every single meditation in the advanced workshop by creating elevated emotional states and being able to sustain them. And we measured it with a HRV monitor. We measured people's hearts while they were doing it. And interestingly enough, the majority of those people were able to create that kind of heart coherence that began to create a strong electromagnetic field, that began to produce a strong chemical change, a strong physiological change, and now their inner environment was more resistant or more orderly than anything in their external environment. So then, if you do that enough times, every single day, then you should no longer be subjected to those opportunistic bacteria, because they're called opportunistic bacteria because they're waiting for an opportunity for your immune system to be compromised. And it's no wonder that a group of people that are all working in a corporation or a department in some company all get sick at the same time. It's not the bugs that's creating the disease. It's their immune system is compromised because they're all stressed at the same time. It allows the bacteria to begin to proliferate within them. So giving people the science and understanding of how the placebo works, is it possible then to teach it? And the placebo is based on 3 things. Conditioning. You give someone a pill, they notice a change in their internal state. You give them a pill again, it takes away their pain. You give them a pill again, it takes their pain away. You give them the pill, but this time it's an inert substance that looks just like the other pill. By conditioning, their body begins to make the same chemicals. The second thing in the placebo is called expectation. You begin to expect something to occur. The moment you select that potential, that possible known in your future, your body begins to physiologically change in preparation for the event. And if 40 to 50% of people that are diagnosed with cancer, that are told that they're going to get nauseous on their first chemotherapy treatment, get nauseous on their drive to their first chemotherapy treatment, they're expecting that outcome. Their brain and body are in that future reality. But instead of doing it that way, is it possible that 40 or 50% of the people get well on their drive to work in anticipation of something wonderful happening? And changing that, using the same principle but changing the biology to produce an effect, begins to cause some very significant changes. Because you can say to a person in a placebo study, we're going to give you a drug, and if the doctor's enthusiastic, it works better. that's going to take away your pain. And they're all enthusiastic, and the person begins to anticipate their pain going away. They begin to make their own morphine, and of course they'd have no reaction to the stimulus that creates the pain. The third thing is assigning meaning to something. So if you say, hey, here's the receptors on the end of your nerve cells, and serotonin has to be picked up in the synaptic space, and this chemical keeps serotonin there so it'll remove depression, and you're looking at the charts and you're assigning meaning to why you're taking this pill, you'll produce a better result. But if you teach people then how to condition their body to a new mind, that's the placebo. If you teach them how to, instead of select the worst thing that could happen in their life, select the most amazing thing that could happen in their life and emotionally embrace it, just like they create anxiety, they could create wellness or healing or health. And if you can assign meaning to what they're doing and teach them why we're using science as the contemporary model to explain and demystify it, it's not enough for them to just intellectually understand it. They have to turn to someone next to them. They have to be able to speak it. They have to be able to say it. So in our workshops, they learn information and then they interact with each other, and I ask them to explain it. If they can explain it, it's wired in their brain. Now we're installing the hardware, so when it comes time to the instruction, and we set up the conditions in the environment for them to practice, if they can get their behaviors to match their intentions by combining those three things, they should have some type of transformation. And we've measured the transformation over and over again, and it's beginning to become a new scientific law. And I really think that we shouldn't wait for science to give us permission to do the uncommon. I think we should go out and do the uncommon and do it repeatedly, and then have science come and study us and begin to change their laws.
Once you activate this center called your heart center, your center of oneness, your center of wholeness, the union of opposites, this is where we begin to create from. This is when we're in a state of creation. We're seeing possibilities that we've never seen before. Now we're no longer victims to our environment. We're now coming up with solutions that cause us to respond in greater ways to our environment. That once energy makes it to this center, that little gland that sits right next to your heart, called the thymus gland. Thymus means time, like a time leaf, has two functions. It has a endocrinological function, which makes growth hormone, which is the fountain of youth. That's what causes a response and repair quickly in the body and regeneration. And then it has an immunological function, and it releases a chemical called thymosin. And when activated, thymosin signals T cells, your elite force in your body. And T cells have receptors on the outside of their cells that have to be activated. And when you're feeling gratitude or love, it's a time for growth and repair. And the emotion then is what begins to select and instruct different genes and activate these T cell receptors that cause the T cell to actually be able to become powerful or empowered against foreign agents, viruses, bacteria, molds, even cancer cells. So by moving into a state of balance, you're strengthening your inner environment. These T cells can actually combat the very foreign agents from our environment. And it's happening right now. It's happening for us right now. Our immune system is memorizing foreign agents on a moment-to-moment basis. But if you're living in fear and the chemical response to your environment is saying it's dangerous or threatening out there, then those chemicals actually shut down the T receptor sites because it needs energy for the emergency in the outer environment. So we become more susceptible to foreign agents in our inner environment. So when the receptors are stimulated, in order for the body to produce antibodies or immunoglobulins, proteins, a gene has to be signaled. So it's the chemical state of wholeness and gratitude that's saying that it's safe enough to relax into the present moment. And now there's growth and repair going on. The chemical signal then activates the receptors activate the gene. The gene makes a protein called an immunoglobulin, and immunoglobulin A is your primary defense against bacteria and viruses. And our research shows 4 days is going to increase that chemical by 50%. And those antibodies are Y-shaped proteins that actually stop the receptors from a virus or a bacteria from attacking it. So now there's an elite force of T cells that's made right from your thymus gland. When energy and blood flow makes it in there, there's a host of physiological changes that begin to take place that causes you to become more immune to the conditions in your environment. So I think it's important for people to understand that they're not limited, that only if they believe that something out there is going to get them. The stronger the fear that we have, the more we put our attention on the cause, and where we place our attention is where we place our energy. So in a sense, we're giving our vitality, our very energy to change and heal to that circumstance. It has power over us. So teaching people how to self-regulate and teaching people how to retreat from their lives and see this as a great opportunity to emerge as somebody else, all of a sudden it becomes a different